Okay, let's get started. So today we are interviewing Aviram Rozin, who is one of the founders of Sadhana Forest, on nourishing people and protecting nature with sustainable food systems. This interview is part of a larger series organized by the Animal Issues Thematic Cluster of the NGO major group within the United Nations in connection with the high-level political forum, which is currently ongoing. The interview will last roughly 30 minutes, and participants may submit questions using the chat feature. Towards the end of the interview, I will select some questions from the audience to ask in addition to those that I've pre-prepared. So, Aviram, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So my first question, what is Sadhana Forest, and what are the problems in existing food systems that it seeks to address?
So Sadhana Forest is a vegan, volunteer-based reforestation organization that started 16 years ago in 2003 in India, and since then expanded to Haiti in 2010 and to Kenya in 2014. And the aim of the organization is to protect animals and to help people transition to a plant-based diet through food forestry. Basically, we started on a barren piece of land, which is now a forest with 166 different species of trees. And we gained a lot of experience in converting arid land into forests. And then we thought, okay, as vegans, what is this good for? What is this knowledge good for? And one of the things it's good for is to help others transition to a plant-based diet and to provide a long-term food security to people. People that depend on animals for their food needs are very sensitive to climate change. The animals suffer and the people suffer as well. So we sort of studied the situation and understood that there are about 130 million people in the world that own significant pieces of land, arid lands, that they don't use to produce food at all. And at the same time, these people are severely malnourished. They're among the 800 million people in the world that are most malnourished, those that are defined as hungry. And we said, okay, maybe these 130 million people, or at least some of them, could benefit from the knowledge that we have accumulated over the years of converting barren lands to forest. And we started working in Haiti. Haiti is severely deforested, and we started working in Haiti as well, and creating small food forests around people's homes, and later in Kenya. And we're very soon starting a project in Northeast India, doing the same thing in 25 villages.
In what ways are plant-based food systems, both food forests as well as more mainstream forms of crop production, superior to animal-based food systems, such as livestock farming or subsistence hunting?
In every way possible. I mean, they're superior in every way that you look at them. They use much less land. Basically, we're deforesting the planet in order to grow animal-based foods, in order to grow soy and other feed for animals, so that they could convert it to protein, so that we could eat the protein, and the animals are so-called the middleman in this system. And in that process, they are suffering from terrible exploitation and killing unnecessarily. Whereas a vegan diet, a plant-based diet, needs much less land. You don't need to deforest. The opposite, you can grow your food in the forest. So it's not just that you don't cut forest, you can create forest as a food system. Water. I mean, animals need a lot of water to grow, and until they are exploited, either for milk or for meat, they need a lot of water to reach that situation, and then to continue producing, or to die in order to be eaten. So all that is extremely water consuming, whereas fruits and vegetables need very little water. And the ratio is dozens of times more. I mean, it's not a 10% difference. Greenhouse gases. I mean, animals are emitting huge amount of greenhouse gases in their digestion and rumination processes, and this is totally unnecessary from so many animals, because we don't need to eat animals. We need to eat plants. Of course, the ethical superiority in terms of animal suffering and exploitation, and in terms of encouraging us to practice speciesism and to feel that we are superior to somebody, and we can milk them against their will and then kill them, and so it's all really severely distorted from any point of view, and unfortunately it takes a long time for us to realize it. And I hope that Sadhana Forest and what you're doing and what all of us are trying to do will, bring this understanding that eating plants is the right way. I've been a vegan for 21 years now, and I feel healthy, I feel happy, I don't feel that I miss anything, the opposite. So I work 14, 16-hour days, fully energetic, travel a lot, yeah.
What sets food forests apart from other forms of crop production, especially monocultures?
Food forest is extremely diverse. I mean, first of all, it's multi-layered. It has so many layers, and the second thing, there's 7 layers in a food forest. Yeah, from the overstory to the vines, through the ground cover, the root layer, the herbaceous layer, the shrub, the understory. It's a very, very vertical system. At the same time, it's a very diverse system that enables habitat for huge amount of wildlife. The food forest is ideal for food production because it's vertical. Crops are horizontal by definition. This is a vertical system. It's funny because people talk a lot about vertical gardens, but the absolute ultimate vertical gardens are food forests, because trees are designed vertically. So yeah, they are resilient to weather, changing weather conditions. For instance, in rain-fed crops, you have so much uncertainty, especially now with climate change. The rain will come or will not come, or too late or too early, and then you may lose your crop. In forest systems, the trees that we are planting are drought-resistant trees. They will produce anyway. Maybe in a very, very bad drought, they'll produce a little bit less, but they'll still produce. And if you have them around your home, you have what to eat. If you have a crop that is rain-fed even, you have a chance of losing it. And definitely monocultures are deserts. I mean, in many ways, they are deserts. They don't have the diversity and the resilience and the health of a polyculture, of a system that is alive, that is interacting with each other, and yeah.
How do food forests benefit wildlife and ecosystems?
Food forests are ideal habitat, especially if they're indigenous. So when you say food forests, people have very different interpretations of what food forests are. There are people, even in the permaculture world, that are bringing a lot of exotic plants from the outside. I personally prefer to work with indigenous plants, and indigenous plants are the perfect habitat for indigenous wildlife. To give you an example, in Sadhana Forest in India, where I'm talking to you now from, we started with 0 species of birds. Now we have 91 species of birds. Yeah. Mammals, all animals are coming back to the forest. Once they have the species that they're used to, that they've evolved with over, a very, very long time, they are immediately coming back. People ask us a lot if we are reintroducing species. There's no need. They find us very easily, and they fly in, they walk in, they crawl in, and they find their place. So yeah, perfect habitat makes perfect ecosystem and wildlife, and then the ecosystem is complete.
Rewilding is a term that's commonly used for projects that are in some ways very similar to yours, that involve reintroducing native flora, in some cases fauna, that involve recreating habitat that's suitable for local wildlife, often wildlife that may be vanished from a particular area. But rewilding also often carries the connotation of kind of nature apart from humanity, of reclaiming spaces that maybe used to be used by humans but have been vacated, whereas Sadhana Forest is very much about involving people and about nourishing people as well as animals. So to what extent would you say that Sadhana Forest is or is not a rewilding project?
It's 100% a rewilding project. I mean, we're part of the wild. People ask me, what is your connection to nature? I said, what are you asking me as a robot? I am part of nature, and I believe that humans are an important part of the forest, and they can contribute to the forest. They can even by propagating species, by eating berries, and I eat a lot of berries. I'm a raw vegan for the past 5.5 years. So my nutrition is a lot from the forest. So I eat so many berries and I throw so many seeds. I'm sure I'm a pretty big contributor here. So people can be part of this. And we have a big role in protecting the forest from other people. So if you are, what we are doing is we're creating food forests around people's homes, and people are part of that. They're growing the forest and they're living off the forest. And this is the relationship, the ancestral relationship that we had with forests. I mean, before the agricultural revolution, if you look at a map of the world 13,000 years ago, yeah, I've just looked last week at some maps and I saw that huge areas that are now deserts were forests. It's pretty amazing that we have lost so much forest, a lot through agriculture. So by moving into food forests, we'll actually increase forest cover, and yeah, and go back a little bit to the gatherers' time, not hunters gatherers, but gatherers, and be able to live off the forest. The forest produces a lot of what people need, you know, not just food, but timber and roofing material and medicines as medicinal plants and you know, even clothing and so many things. The forest is the best, you know, collaborator of the human in nature.
To what extent are Sadhana Forests programs and strategies in different places led by local people in terms of the development of a specific strategy? I know that in some places you create like well-defined forests, whereas in others you tend to create like groves of trees around households. How much of the strategy is led by locals versus how much is kind of a top-down approach within the organization?
So the defined foresting is really only in India, because we actually are lucky enough to have a piece of land that is under our control and can be reforested and protected very effectively, relatively large piece of land. In other places, the aim, we took the same experience and we're using it for something else, for growing a forest, but around people's homes. But if you look at it at the very long term, let's say there's a house here and a house here, the forest grows in concentric circles. And when the forest grows very much, they connect and they become one forest. So this is the vision in the end, is to enable one big forest, so to speak. Yeah, that will be nurtured by people and owned by people, not public lands, but privately owned food forests.
And how much of that approach is led by locals, like the communities that you engage with?
I would say the approach was developed by us, but when we come to a community, we ask them what is their vision for their land, okay? What do they want to see in 10, 15, 20 years? And if they describe something that is similar to our vision, then we start working with them. Otherwise, we would, and it happened, the people say, no, our vision is to move towards more, these kind of crops and to sell things to, okay, thank you, and, but if they're in line with this vision of rewilding and growing food at the same time, then we work with them, and it's always in huge harmony. I mean, we have great friendship with the people we work with. It's not, I overheard a conversation in Haiti in which somebody asked another person, how many NGOs are in this town? And the other guy said 2. And he said, what about Sadhana Forest? It's a third one, no? So Sadhana Forest is not an NGO. Sadhana Forest is part of our community, And this was, for me, one of the biggest, compliments, because people don't view us as an NGO. They view us as part of them because our approach is so long-term. We buy a piece of land, we make a demonstration plot on it, we live on it very, very simply, very similar to the way local people live. So that distinction that you're talking about between local people and us is almost, in reality, almost doesn't exist.
So it sounds like you have faced conflict in some places, communities that objected to the concept of a food forest or of a plant-based food system, or it simply wasn't compatible with their goals. Is that correct?
No, there were communities that we never start to work if people don't want us to work. So we never faced the conflict. But for instance, in Kenya, we visited 3 communities initially, and short visits, but with deep conversations. And some of the communities said, no, we want a very Western lifestyle. We don't want to grow trees. We want to have a lot of animals. We want to have a monoculture with chemicals and different things. We said, okay, there are other NGOs that I'm sure will be able to support you with this. This is not what we do. But the community in Samburu in Kenya was, when they described their vision was, I would say, 99% our vision. So we said, okay, there's compatibility. We can work with these people, and 6 years later, the project is thriving. I mean, we have a waiting list of a few years of people that want food forests around their homes. If we had more money now to fund our activity, we could scale it up almost indefinitely. Yeah. And that's just in Samburu, Kenya. I'm not talking about 20 other counties in Kenya that have expressed interest, about Namibia, about so many other places in the world that have expressed interest.
Have you ever had a problem with poaching or wildlife crime in any Sadhana Forest location?
Very little. Here in India, we had some people doing these wire traps for rabbits. So we actually found out pretty early that they're doing this. I don't think they caught any rabbit because we found it out. We were very vigilant and found it out, and we just cut it and removed it. They came again, they put it, we removed it, and I think they lost steam after some time because they understood that they're wasting a lot of wire and they're not getting any rabbits, and they just left us alone. Yeah.
Are food forests only effective at providing local subsistence, or can they be scaled to feed large populations? Could they ever become a form of commercial agriculture?
Absolutely, absolutely. They can feed any amount of people. It just depends on the size of the forest that you create. And they take so much less water and attention. And, you know, when I give training to people, I usually start the training by saying, I train only lazy people. You know, those that want to work hard can go to, you know, to do agriculture. To an agriculture workshop. Food forestry is for lazy people that want to invest some work in the beginning and then relax and just, you know, pick the fruits. They don't need to work hard. So actually, if we had a food forest that would feed big populations, we wouldn't need farmers that work so hard. Because really the work in the food forest in the first 2 years, after that, there's not much to do.
Besides food forests, what other practices, either traditional types of food production or new technologies, say like higher tech meat alternatives or cellular meat, do you believe could feed the world more sustainably?
I personally don't believe in imitating meat in any way. I believe in letting people experience vegan food and saying that vegan food is non-imitational vegan food, but plant-based food that looks like plants is a healthy and tasty alternative. But I don't go against anything that could save animals because I love animals. So if people feel that they can save animals that way and they can feed people that way, it's fine. But I personally, it's not something I connect with. I mean, the vegan organic agriculture, you know, could be a wonderful, you know, any agriculture that uses a lot of mulching, a lot of biomass compost, you know, that is completely stock-free, you know, that doesn't use any animal inputs like feces or body parts or anything or from animals is an amazing practice that could feed the world. And I think we should keep it simple. Yeah.
So on the one hand, the COVID-19 pandemic has severely negatively impacted many NGOs around the world in reducing what kinds of activities can be done, organizations' abilities to pay staff. But on the other hand, regarding forests and reforestation in Pakistan, the government's program to plant trees across the country has actually really taken off since the pandemic began, because it's become a form of alternative employment for people who've lost their jobs due to the pandemic. So I'm curious, how has the pandemic affected Sadhana Forest's activities?
First of all, we had many volunteers, especially in India, during the lockdown period. So we were doing a lot of work, much more than in other summers that in those last 16 years, because so many people were sort of captive audience. They couldn't fly back to their countries, and they were here with us for a few months, and we all did amazing work in the forest. So that was really good effect. I think another effect was all these webinars, like the one we're doing now, and all this time that people have to devote to listen to these messages. You know, I've never spoken so much in my life. Today I had 4 Zoom sessions, you know. This is the 4th one today. Tomorrow I have another one with government officials. You know, people are free. They have free time to listen. And that's amazing. And also in terms of donations, I saw a rise, not a fall. Because many times it's not a question of availability of money, it's a question of the attention span to know how to discern, how to find the right organization to donate. And now people have more time to listen. So maybe organizations like us that don't have a huge brand name and don't have a huge marketing mechanism have a better chance now than, because when you're very busy, you of course give more attention to the big brands that you already know. Oh, that name I've heard so many times. I have something, I'll give to them. But now people listen more, and we can tell the story, and we can they take more time to study us and to see that we're serious in what we're doing, and they support us more. So I'm actually feeling that COVID-19 has benefited us.
That's interesting. So one last question, unless I receive any inquiries from the audience, in which case I will present those as well. We've talked already about the benefits of food forests and of plant-based food systems generally, in terms of negating the harms that are caused by animal-based systems. But what positive benefits can food forests create for the environment, for the climate, in terms of things like carbon sequestration or preventing erosion, things like that?
Yeah. I mean, food forest is part of could be part of a strategy to restore, you know, destroyed lands, eroded lands. And that's what we're actually doing. So the trees hold the soil in place. They create topsoil. They create a canopy which protects the land. They, of course, sequester carbon into themselves, but also we plant species that are called oxalogenic species, which sequester the carbon into the ground as limestone, you know, as calcium carbonate. And that means that the sequestration is permanent. There is no, even if you cut the tree or you burn the tree, the carbon would not be released back to the atmosphere. So, yeah, increasing, you know, wildlife habitat is a huge one also. It's just what nature, I would say, almost wants. I mean, you know, a piece of land that is, I know that I experience that every day because I came here when there was not a blade of grass. And now I live in a forest, and you feel the happiness of everybody. You hear it from the birds. You know, it feels a happy place, and the energy is completely different. The energy of a forest and the energy of an empty piece of land is completely different. Yeah.
That's a beautiful closing message. The happiness of reforested areas.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The happiness of the people that reforest. You know how much happiness I have received in those 16 years of doing this work. I can't describe it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing your best to describe it and for sharing so much fascinating information about food forests and about plant-based food systems generally. Thank you so much. Our next interview will be tomorrow at 1:30, and I will be speaking with Nick Jukes of Interniche on the benefits of replacing animal use in science and education. Until then, thank you so much for attending, and thank you, Aviram, for your time.
Thank you very much, Wolf. Thank you. Bye-bye.